Okay, so I've got the rooms here added, which you can add as well the same way I have, just by eyeballing it from the plan here that you've been given. It doesn't need to be maybe all that precise, as long as you have the walls roughly in the right location. I'm assuming you're going to demolish all of this anyway for your design proposal, so as long as you can indicate the existing location roughly and show it for your demolition plans as well. But also it's going to give us a good chance to look at how to show the plumbing and drainage and do a few things with blocks and other symbols. So what I'm going to do before I even start working on all of that drainage is get the legend for those things. And so I've opened the file up already, but I'll just open it again so that you know how to find it. And well, I'll actually make a new version of it for you as well. So as always with AutoCAD, you don't need to load in any special formats. You can just go and open from the main menu, drawing, or just click where it says open, and make sure it's on DWG at the bottom, because people seem to have been changing it to DWT, which is template. Don't want that. And then if you browse onto the P drive and go to the interior design folder, you'll see AutoCAD library. And a good trick there actually, if you don't want to browse to that all the time, just drag a shortcut over into the grey bar on the left. And that will make a shortcut that will remain on the computer you're working on. So you can copy that folder, take it home and make a shortcut for it there as well if you like. And so here we've got Blocks 2D. We've got two. AutoCAD 2D has a lot of good stuff as well, which I'll come back to, but for now Blocks 2D is the one I want. And then going down in the list there, you'll see Legends. And then we have Bathroom Legend, I'll start with, which is just a set of abbreviations, but that's still really useful. So we're going to label all of these units. That's the way it should be done. But what you'll find with this set of text is that it's set up for a certain scale. And that's something you always need to consider with text and symbols. Decide or try and work out how the scale is being managed. And if you look at the properties here, you'll see that it has a name to help you. Oh no, this one doesn't, sorry. This one is, sorry, the other one was. This one is just set up with a height, so that doesn't even help you much. So it's 450. So that doesn't tell us a lot about the scale that it was meant for. So I'm going to decide on a new height for that. So I'm going to make it 250. And maybe I'll change, no, sorry, I was going to change the name of the text style, but I won't worry about that. It's fine as it is. So I'm going to just do a save as, and I'm going to save it as Bathroom Legend 1 to 100 in the same folder. And I'll close that file. I could copy and paste from here, but it's better to close it and show you the correct way of inserting, which in AutoCAD is to use Insert. So on the Insert tab, you can just click on Insert, and then you have to go to More Options to load in a new file. Click Browse, and then we'll go to the same folder. So I've got my shortcut over here now that I can use. Go to Blocks 2D, and then Legends, and there is Bathroom Legend 1 to 100. So I don't want to change the rotation, so I'll turn that option off to specify on screen. Just leave insertion point specify on screen turned on. Uniform scale on as well. Click OK, and then I'll click somewhere to place it, and you can see again that this one maybe wasn't set up all that well because the text is off to the side. That's not a huge drama because we're not going to put it onto the page that we've made before anyway. I'm going to put it over to one side. So just so that I can see it maybe next to my floor plan, but outside of the border there. You'll see why that's helpful in a minute. And so we've got the text here on just a random layer as well. And I've got a layer for text, so I'll put this text onto that layer while I'm at it, and maybe move it to one side just to get it off the sheet. And then the other text I can delete. And then this text I'll put onto the same text layer for now. It might be good to have more than one layer for text later on, but for now that's okay. And I suppose while I'm at it, I'll tackle the electrical legend, which I've also got open, and so it's in the same folder, in the Legends folder in Blocks 2D. And this one I know is set up for a different scale. And here you can see the person who made this one has at least named things in a logical way. When you go into properties with any of those text objects, you'll see the style, and you can see it's text 25, which means 2.5 mil, 50, so that's 1 to 50. And so there, the height is 125. And again, that tells me that it's set up for 1 to 50. Right, now we want it to be set up for 1 to 100, because you need to do A3 drawings, and you'll only fit these floor plans on at that scale. So to make this 1 to 100, what we can do is scale all of it twice. So 2 is my scale factor. And now, if I select any of those objects, you'll see the height now is 250, the same as I made the other one. The problem with that is that these light fittings that are a certain size are too big now. So I've scaled them by 2, and that means they'll be double the size they should be. If I measure across there, you'll see the measurements are 600 by 2400, and it should be 1200 by 300. Right, so I'm going to go to scale with each of those separately and make the scale factor 0.5 to make them half again. Oh, well, these aren't blocks. Yeah, so if they were blocks I would have definitely, but yeah. So so they're just lines and arcs. They probably should be made into blocks, but I'll do that as I start to use them in the drawing file with the floor plan. So that's done as well now for 1 to 100. And maybe some of these other light fittings could be made smaller as well, though, because that will be too big on a 1 to 100 plan. But again, just think practically whether these lights are even going to be used, and honestly I don't think they're going to be, so we'll let someone else worry about that. And so I'm just going to again go to Save As and make this electrical legend 1 to 100. Close the file, and then again in my Chippendale file, Insert, More Options, Browse. It's already in the right folder, so I can just choose that new file. Click OK. Place it just to one side for now. And I'll put it onto the correct layer as well. The text, my text layer. Okay. And then now we're going to make some extra layers for these things in a moment anyway. So we also need the fire services. So I'm going to just make some room, move this up a little bit. And then the fire services drawing I've got open as well, so fire legend. So this will go onto the electrical services drawing. And then the plumbing and drainage could be a separate drawing. But well, things like the fire hose wheel you could put on the plumbing drawing as well. So again, we've got to check the setup of this. So again, looking at the text style, you can see again this one was also set up for 1 to 50. So same trick as before, using scale. I can make it double the size. And again, really important that I use save as and save this as a new file, file legend 1 to 100. Close, and again I'll insert this one now. And again, fix the layer. And move it. Now you can see there we've got this point object showing up, which we'll need to fix, but all of that can be done once it's exploded. So I might just neaten that up by drawing a line from the insertion point of one of those text objects, and now I can just, while it's still a block, check any of those things that aren't in line. Well, some of them are, some of them aren't. That's mostly pretty good, but you can see here obviously a few things out, and I'm just being picky, but it's nice to have them made a bit neater. Okay, so we're going to have the plumbing on one drawing. So again, I can just have that line projecting through though to line it up for now. And oops. So here it's all one text object. So I can't snap to any of it. I can just by eye snap to one side of the text. Take it across perpendicular. Oh, it snapped to the insertion point anyway, that happens. So I'll just do that again and make sure I don't snap. Yep, close enough. And we might need to change the spacing there, but I think for now that's okay. So to work with any of these things, I've got to explode them. So I'm just going to select all of those and use explode to break them up. And now I can go through and work with any of those symbols. So we've got here again this point, which I think is unnecessary. It's to show you the insertion point of that fire hydrant or fire hose reel, but I'm just going to delete it. But now it's an easy point to locate again. And so again, we probably won't need all of these symbols, so we can remove a lot of these. But I just want to show you how to get this to the right scale on the sheet. So before I do start doing the plumbing drawing, get rid of that line, I'm going to set up a page. And this is the part that I think is the most confusing, understanding how the scale of these items relates to the scale on the page. So I've got two layouts there already, but I'm going to make a new layout from scratch just to take you right through the whole process. I'm going to click on New Layout. So layout 3 is my new layout. Then right click on that layout and go to Page Setup Manager. And then Modify. And right away set the sheet size we want, which is A3. Now if it doesn't give you an option for the paper sizes, you need to check that it's got a printer chosen. So you can either leave it on one of the printers in this room or use either the Adobe PDF or the DWG to PDF, which is a good one because you have that always when you're using AutoCAD. May as well set the plot style while we're at it to monochrome to make it print black and white. And leave the scale on 1 to 1. So here you can see it's picked up a different paper size name, but it's still A3. Don't worry about the order of the values there. As long as it's on landscape, it should stay landscape. Click OK, close, and now we know we're looking at an A3 page. It's going to select that border. and see if I have I do have a non-printing layer called def points. I'll make a proper one later, but that will work for now. So def points is one of those system layers that you get once you make a dimension. If you don't have def points, probably should show you, make sure you do have a non-printing layer. So I'll make one I'll just call it Viewport non-plot. So I usually make that a bright colour so it really stands out. And then if you scroll across in your layer properties, you should find the printer icon, and you can just click on that to make it non-printing. Exactly, yeah. So you can see the def points layer that's below it. If you have that, that's always set to be non-printing. That's a handy one to know about, but it helps to make your own. So that way you can have it as a colour that stands out. So now, I mean, def points wouldn't have printed either, because I don't want the border of the viewport to print. So I want that to be invisible. I'll just show you the print preview now. Before doing any setup, I don't have that border showing when I print. The outside is the page, and then this is the viewport. So the viewport is what you're getting from the model tab here. So it's showing me everything at the moment, but I'm going to change it just to show part of it. So first I'm going to select the viewport border and just stretch it with the grip on the corner up and to the right, so it's just within that dashed border, and that dashed border is my printable area. So I'm going to leave room though for a title block, so I'll bring this across. We don't know if we're going to have a vertical or a horizontal title block yet, so I'll try and allow for both. So if it's a vertical title block, it'll be over here on the right, I'd assume. If it's a horizontal title block, it'll be down the bottom. So I'll maybe just bring it up a little bit, and then maybe a bit more here. So that might be a good area. And now I want to work within the viewport. So clicking on the paper button will activate the viewport. Clicking on model will take you back to paper. Now if you double click inside the viewport, that also will take you to paper. Also turn off paper will take you to model, sorry. And double click outside the viewport, and that again is another way of going back to paper. So you need to make sure you can switch comfortably between those two options. And now I'm going to zoom, and I'll start by setting up the reflected ceiling plan, I think, just so I can show you how layers can be used. It doesn't really matter which order you set things up, you're going to need all these drawings on sheets. So I've just zoomed roughly to get the drawing I want showing inside that viewport. And now I'm going to choose the scale. So that's the method you should always use. Zoom roughly and pan so that it's centered, because when you change the scale, it's going to zoom in or out centered on that drawing. And so now you can see I've got the scales in the list there, and I'm going to choose 1 to 100. And that's just zoomed in a bit more to make it exactly that scale. So I've got a fair bit of room, and I can easily have this floor plan and then some legends over to the right in between this and my title block. And I want the room for that. So I've got the plan over to the right, and then just to make it clearer how viewports can work, I've got these reference lines still showing. So in my list of layers now, I can find that layer that they're on, a ref, and notice you've got the on-off option, but that's going to turn them off everywhere. And I might still want to see them back in model space. So I'm not going to use that. The next one, freeze and thaw, does the same thing. So on-off and freeze and thaw basically do the same thing. They're just two ways of hiding things. Next to that though, you have freeze or thaw in current viewport. So with that, I can freeze that layer only in this viewport. Yeah, so if I go back to the modern tab, they're still on. Yeah. And so that's how you can get multiple drawings from the one plan, or the one section, or anything else, just by having different combinations of layers on and off. And that's exactly how we'll get the electrical drawing, because in the electrical drawing, it's going to help to have the joists done. That's why we had to do the joists first, because those light fittings sit on the joists. So that'll help you to position the light fittings. But you probably don't want to see the joists in that electrical drawing. It's just going to make it too confusing. So we can also freeze that layer in your electrical drawing. But the reflected ceiling plan, in its raw state, will show the joists, so I'm going to leave them on here. And the section line as well, I probably don't need to show for the time being in this reflected ceiling plan, so I will freeze that as well. And then I don't want that position to change either. I want this position to remain exactly as it is, and the scale to stay as well. So next to the scale option, 2 buttons to the left, you've got the option to lock. So with that, once you click on the padlock, now if you zoom, it'll zoom the whole page and doesn't change it. So, because everyone forgets. Yeah. That's right, it's painful, because then also, once you move it, so it's just this padlock next to scale. And so once it's blue, then it's locked. And yeah, I know how bad it is, because once you zoom and change the scale, if you forget to reset it immediately, you've lost the position as well. And yeah, so, and it's a really nice thing you can do is when you're setting up sheets in AutoCAD, is to have the plans in exactly the same place. So when you make your PDFs, you can flick through them and quickly see where the changes are. So that's pretty much done. I'll do the text afterwards. Maybe in Paperspace, I'll do a lot of the text anyway. So if I click on Model now, back onto the sheet, I can then select that border and fine-tune that size to make it a bit smaller, because I don't need it to be quite so big. And now I can put a legend next to that. So we'll say for now this is maybe going to be the reflected ceiling plan. So I'm going to rename this sheet as, well, it's good to put in as much information as you can. So I'll say it's A3 at 1 to 100 RCP, reflected ceiling plan. And so now I want another copy of that sheet to do my electrical services drawing. So when you right click on that tab, you can go to Move or Copy, choose Move to End if you want it to go after the one that you've created, tick Create a Copy, and it will duplicate it, exactly. Exactly, yeah, that's a really good way. Yeah. And when you right click on that tab, then you can go to Rename and just call it something slightly different. So this will be exactly. So it doesn't want to, there it is. So it's just freezing up a bit on me. I think it's running out of memory, but there we go. Okay, so this one will obviously need the legend, so I might even just try and get a bit more room. And then I'm going to make a new viewport. So I'll change to my viewport layer, and you make viewports on the layout tab. So it's at the end here, and it's at the end because it only comes up with the newer versions of AutoCAD when you're on a layout, which is a good thing. And then you've got the rectangular button. You can choose different shaped viewports, but normally rectangular is all you need. And then I'm just going to make a new viewport over to the right. Let's just do a snap to get that to line up. And this is going to be a big long legend, so I'm going to make it the full height. Again, same method as before, double click to make the viewport active, zoom roughly to the things you want, then set the scale, and you can see that we won't fit all of that legend in its current form, but I can at least get the heading in there, and then the symbols, again, going to be struggling to fit them at this scale. So before I go too far there, I'm going to go back into the model tab. Even though I could have done it in the viewport, it's easier definitely to work on these things here, and just tidy that up a bit. So I'm going to move all of those symbols over just by eye, I think. What have they done? A leader there, have they? Yeah, I'll move that as well. Okay, so I've gone a bit too close. So I'm just going to move by using that shortcut previous. Take it back a bit. That might be okay, and then this one can just be tidied up. And then we can all come up closer to the title. The title can definitely be improved and centered maybe over the top as well. And then, okay, so I can move all of these things up. And then you need to go through and work out which things apply. So the now telephones are always an interesting one these days. It's amazing how many people don't even have landlines anymore. I don't. But I've got an internet cable coming in that's in the same place, so you still need to mark it. And this building, I'd say, probably would have one, but it's going to be a difficult thing to find. I might leave that, but maybe it's optional if you use it. The GPOs you'll need, definitely. Permanent electrical connection, I don't think you're going to have. And there might be one in the kitchen. I don't even remember if there was just a hardwired connection. So for stove or something like that. So yeah, like I'm going to say, you probably don't need that one. TV outlet. Oh no, sorry, we'll leave but I'm trying to think about the existing, but of course you've got your design to think about as well, and you will need that definitely for that. But then these lighting fixtures, I think you'll be able to take out a lot of those. So downlights, some of these you might need. Let's see. Track lighting, you may be going to have that as well. Exhaust vent, yes, you'll have that definitely. These other lights. Okay, so high bay light fitting. Get rid of that. Opal, go. And these external lights, I'd say you probably won't need either. Yep. Light switch, though, you definitely will. So I'm not going to be too fussy about the spacing. I'm just going to move this up by eye so it looks like the same spacing. And again, move these together. And we can probably get the fire services then in underneath. So that should be a lot neater, and now going back onto the page, still not quite going to make it. Okay, so I'm just going to push it together a bit more. So that was 2 missing. So do we need all of these? Fire hydrant. You may actually need. Yeah, I think there is one. Yeah, I think I remember seeing one in there. Yeah. So yeah, so you need that. So let's see if we can just get that a little bit tighter. Mechanical exhaust. Yeah, you will have that in the end. Oh, here we go, recessed brick light. Probably won't need that. There we go. I think that, oh, there was one more, wasn't there? Fire extinguisher. Yeah, I don't want to waste too much time on this, but can't see too many things that we can take out now. Okay, so I might just need to make that viewport a bit bigger. Or, no, so I can pan slightly. There we go, just. That'll do it. Yep, that's okay. It's not a, doesn't need to be a beautiful drawing. So that, I think, should be okay. Doesn't leave a lot of room for the title block, but I think it's enough. And maybe, yeah, might need to just adjust some of that text so that it goes down to the next line. Yeah. No, still not need to move that over. Well, I'll show you. So if we do need to move this over, no, I don't, well, don't want to move it too far because we've got to allow for the dimensions. So I think you might need to look at adjusting some of that text. So I can show you a couple of good tricks with text actually, because this, I'll be pretty sure, is, yeah, that single line text. When it's text, it's single line. If it's multi-line text, it's M text. So there, all you can really do is copy this text down, and I'll get the this one as well. Oh no, we'll just do these two for now. So again, just copy that down. And can take off the last part there, and then take off the first part of this. So I'm just double clicking to make that editable. Right, so that's much better. Okay, so that will give you the legend on the sheet at the correct scale, and if you're ever unsure, you can always measure the text on your sheet, making sure you're in paper mode. So you can see there it's close enough to 2.5 mil, the measurement, so I know that the text is the correct scale. And so then we can get a lot of these things just by copying them here. I don't expect you to have a perfect electrical drawing, but you just need to make an attempt at getting it right. And well, actually here we've got, it says recessed fluorescent light fitting, but the lights aren't recessed, but they're still doubles. So you can see here all of these lights, they're doubles and they do have a bit of a light fitting. So I'm going to change that to double instead of recessed, and single. Yeah, that is the size, yeah, or close enough. Yeah. And fitting. So that should work better. And then such by copying these, I'm not going to do all of them, I'm just going to give you the basic idea. And I know it's tempting to make that into a block. It wouldn't be a terrible idea, actually, but yeah, no, I will show you because I did want to show you making blocks. So You've made some blocks before, so it shouldn't be too difficult. Just on the Insert tab, or even on the Home tab, you can go to the Blocks panel there and just click on Create Block. And so let's call it 1200 by 300 fluoro. That should be fine. Fluoro light. You can call it whatever you like. The insertion point, I'll just make one of the corners, I think. Or no, so I'll do this midpoint of that line. That's the centre, so that should help. And convert to block. And that will help with the placement as well, because we can just rotate if we need to. And so then, just looking at a couple of the photos to get a rough idea. Okay, so we've got some lights on the bottom of that beam at the base of the stairs. So here, no, have I missed another beam, have I? Oh no, I think I've just got the placement. There's a fire hydrant as well. Yep, I've missed a beam. Okay, so there's another beam there. So that's okay, it's easy to just add that now. So again, not being too fussy about this placement. So that's an easy one, just to fence all the way across, I think. So make sure, oh yep, so that's okay. Right, so then the block can be just inserted. So there it is. So two roughly either side of the door. Yep, that'll do. So there's the door, and so you don't need to be too fussy about this. It's a diagram after all, and the electricians definitely will use a bit of judgment. When you're putting in your own light design, you want to be a bit more accurate with the placement, but again, they will use some common sense as well. So again, normally you might be tempted to trim these things, but you don't have to, and we're not going to show the beams and the joists on the electrical drawing anyway, so that's okay. And oh yeah, so the layers. Now here, I think I mentioned to you before, there's a bit of a trick you can use with blocks. I'm just going to show you. If I go to Edit Block in Place, these lines I meant to show you earlier are all on, oh no, okay, they're not. They're on RCP Light. They should be on Layer 0. Well, that's another a technique that you can use. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to change them to Layer 0, just to show you this technique. And I'm going to save the changes to that block. So now they're on that layer, and you can see they've now taken on the colour of the layer that they're on. So I'm going to make a layer now, and if you've been thinking all your layers are going to begin with A, well, now we're going to have one that begins with E. Finally, I know it's a relief after a while. So E for electrical. And if you're wondering about the drainage and the plumbing fixtures, P for plumbing. So yeah, I know, it's satisfying once you have a lot of A's. So E, lights. So in the colour's really up to you, just something that'll stand out would be good. No, you don't need to. So I'm just making sure it's on a separate layer, and then I can manage it on that drawing. Okay, so you'll see once I go there. So I'm going to select those two lights and put them onto my correct layer. And then remembering that the one in the legend as well is a block, so it needs to go onto the layer to show properly. Right, so notice how if you make the lines on layer 0, then you can easily change the layer of the block afterwards and the objects will change. So you can then just go on and copy the lights all around. And so it's much easier to do it here because we've got those layers on. What I'm going to do on the electrical drawing now is go in and, well, for a start, sometimes it's hard to see the colours. The grid can get in the way as well, so turning the grid off doesn't hurt, but it's still difficult to look at. So a difficult one to work in, but I can easily now go and hide the joist layer by freezing in current viewport only, and then the beams. So that's over, so it's this one. So how much easier is that to look at? But you can go back to the model tab to do that. So everything's on there, and that's normally a good way to have it. And then on the reflected ceiling plan, we don't need to show the lights. Or we may, actually, but it's optional. So here, if you wanted to, because they're on an electrical layer now, they could be frozen there. So that's a good way of setting everything up. And then you can just continue placing lights by either inserting or copying those blocks. But I'll let you work that out going through the photos. And then the sorry, the yeah, because that's the only record we've got from that time. So try to go through all of those elements and see which apply. If you can work out where the electrical distribution board is, that would be fantastic. So you may need to draw a little rectangle to indicate the shape of it, and then just copy the text over. So remember, the text is already set up for 1 to 100, so you can just copy it. Has anyone seen it? Oh, there we go. That wasn't hard. Let's go. So sometimes life's easy. And so over here we've got the location, which we can just draw on this reflect the ceiling plan. Now, so here, make another layer, E power. Again, the colour's up to you. Maybe bright red one. Never know with electrical. Yeah. So maybe this could be a bit heavier. Yeah. So let's see, it's not far from the door. So here, not going to be too fussy, just by eye. Trying to get it to track, so it's on the line. Cross, I don't know, 100 mil. Back and across. And it's mainly the symbol or the text that's going to tell people what it is. And there, this might show you why you use single line text, because single line text can be a bit painful, but of course they've used multi-line text. You should be able to rotate. Let's see if we can. No, multi-line text you can't rotate. So, well, I'll delete that. I know I had some single line text up here. Oh no, not there. It was. Yeah. Okay, so it's changed. They've used the wrong way around. That one should be single line. This one really should be multi-line. But that's okay. I'll copy this. And again, the reason you want to use single line text, or the reason you sometimes have to use it, is so that you can rotate it. So using just the normal rotate tool, you can make that 90 degrees. Now, I was always taught that you want to read things clockwise, so thinking about where that is on the sheet, that's not very easy to read, so it should be the other way around. So that you're reading around clockwise. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So? Ah, right. Yeah. Oh, yes. Reading the other opposite way. Yeah. So, yeah, there must have been some left-handers in Japan who came up with the writing system, which is good for me because my writing has always suffered being a left-hander. Yeah, so I wish it was that way with English as well. But unfortunately, the right-handers dominate. Yeah. So you can again just copy these symbols across, and so where they're symbolic, things like emergency lights, smoke detectors, just copy the symbol across. Maybe think about making it a block first to make your life a bit easier if you've got to change them, especially. But there's some, the ones in the Australian standard are, I suppose, the technically correct ones for Australia, but they're also not always the most commonly used ones. So I think these are more commonly used. So that I'd be going with these over the Australian standard, for the electrical especially. But maybe it's just because I'm used to these. So that should give you enough anyway to work out the electrical drawing, except that you also need to show the circuits. So you need to show a switch, and you're going to have to really use some judgment here, looking at the photos to work out where the light switches are, but you probably assume there's a light switch near the circuit board there. And so, again, don't worry if it's not absolutely perfect, as long as you've made an attempt at it. So this one, again, is just a couple of lines. So I'll make, this one is on layer 0 though, so I'll make a block from that. Light switch, I suppose is as good a name as any. Yeah, go back to using capitals for some reason. Make sure you don't forget to choose an insertion point, and so again now I can just put this onto, well, it really is to do with the power for the lighting. The power, after all, does go through the lights to the light switch, and that's how they receive power via the cables that come from the light switch, so I think that makes sense. And so I'll just copy this across now.
Why did you make a block to start off on layer 0?
Just so that I can change the layer. So if I change the layer of this block afterwards to something else, notice how it changes colour. And that's because the lines within the block are all on layer 0. And so it's only layer 0 that behaves that way, because it's a system layer, so it's got that special property. And now actually thinking about it, it should be really, even though it is power, I'm going to put it on the lights layer, because we want the option of turning off the the lights, and the light switches should go off with those. So that makes more sense. And so I'm going to copy that over to my drawing. An option is to put a little number to indicate the number of switches if it's got more than one. But here, since it's only got one, we'll leave it without a number. Okay, so then if you're wondering how to show a circuit, you need to then draw a dashed line connecting the switch to the lights that it connects to, that it turns on, essentially. So again, you could make a layer for this, but I'm going to show you the quick way, which is to draw on the lights layer. And you can use either lines or arcs, though, look a bit more graphically correct. So with just a 3-point arc, I'm going to go from the switch, and I'm going to leave a bit of a gap so that it doesn't connect right to it, as long as you know which one it goes to. And then to the first, also to a midpoint, and then to the somewhere on the light. Like I said, it should be dashed, so I can change that now by selecting it, and then just in the properties panel choose a different line type. So that way you don't have to make a special layer that has dashed lines. And then you can either draw another line to the light switch or just connect from that other light to the next one. Yeah, just change that. And so every light that every light that is turned on by that light switch just needs a dashed line connecting it, and so you might have another set of lights with another switch somewhere else, and that's the way you show your circuits. It doesn't need to show where the wires go, and so that's a common mistake. That's right, and that's the electrician's job. They're trained to work all of that out, and that's why they come in on site before all of the framing's finished to establish that. And then, or in between the framing and the lining, and then you just need to show them, tell them how the circuits are connected, so they know which switch goes to which light, and they work it all out from that. So again, that should hopefully give you enough to work the rest of the electrical services out. Then the drainage diagram, or the plumbing services, work in a similar way, but because the objects are normally shown to scale, I thought I can show you a few things there. So again, those rooms you can work out from the drawing if you haven't done them already, and then the hatchets we'll do after the symbols go in, which is convenient. So I'm going to get these symbols from the library as well, just going to again insert and then more options and then browse. So back into the Blocks 2D folder, we've got bathroom and then WC pans, and then all these different basic WCs. And assuming this is a really old building, I'm going to say it's probably got a pretty horrible old WC. So that one maybe, or even, yeah, I think that's probably the one that is closest. Yeah, it's actually, some of the old ones can be pretty nice. I know it's not the most exciting thing getting into toilet design, but something you should think about, and definitely people notice when you choose good ones for your own spaces. Yeah, anyhow, I'll just choose this one. Doesn't really matter as long as you've got a symbol for it. And so here I do want the rotation done on screen, so I'm going to tick that option. We again shouldn't need to scale it though, so just leaving uniform scale on though. And it's unitless, but we should be okay with the scale factor there. So I'm going to click OK. It's come in. And so again, a good trick here is to use that nearest option, NEA, enter. I'm just going to pick a point on that wall. And then now notice it will, if you move around enough, you will get it to snap perpendicular to the wall above. You can also just try doing it by eye, But if you're fussy and you want it to be exactly perpendicular to the wall, good option is to choose a point on that wall so that at least it's picked up that angle, and now it can rotate it from that insertion point exactly 90 degrees. Remember, we're going clockwise, so it'll be minus 90. That's one way of making it accurate. And then looking at the drawing there, you can see we've got the door that needs to go in as well before you can do the hatching. And maybe I'll leave hatching for another day. But then the text as well should come across. And again, we've got this block of text which makes it difficult to copy from. So really all we can do there is copy some other single line text just to save you making a new lot of text. I know that can be fiddly, so I'm just going to copy some existing text and change that to what it should be. So it should say WC for water closet pan. It's funny, people don't know what WC actually means. So yep, so the original things were little closets that had the water connected, so that's literally what they are, a water closet. But WC is all you need. And it's up to you how you place that, but it's important to label. Sometimes people just get so used to having those symbols read on the plan that they don't label everything. And it is really important with construction drawings to label every fitting so that it's itemised in the schedules and other things that people, even if you're not doing them, the people pricing it need to do all of that and be able to clearly notate everything that's indicated. So on your proposal, you'll definitely need to make that clear as well. So the shower will just be a cross normally. You don't need to have a symbol for that. You can just draw lines. So again here, I haven't got a layer yet for plumbing, but I'll just finish off with that. So P and bath, I think should be enough. Bathroom, you can say. So this is for your bathroom fittings. Colour, again, entirely up to you. And the line weight's medium, should be fine, 0.25. And so, this WC, I'd say if I put it onto this new layer I've made, should mostly change colour. Yep, so that was made with layer 0, which was good. And then the shower, it'll have, again, lines just crossing diagonally, and you'll have that open eventually with an opening. So do the tiles after you've done the opening. But you should also show a drain, a floor waste there. And so here FW would be the symbol for that. And there should really be a symbol. If the floor waste symbol isn't here, you can always draw it in. So do you know what a floor waste symbol looks like? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. And because we've got a cross there, we don't really need to draw the cross that you'd normally have. So you could just have a circle there, and so just simply draw a circle. My eye is good enough here. That's fine. Again, we can just copy this text across, and so really, it's not very clear if you have the text for both of these things the same size. So a good option there is to make this, obviously it's going to be floor waste, but I think it'll be more, I don't know, just graphically correct if you make that a bit smaller and even a different font. Yeah, that would be, I think, better. And then this can be shower, and yeah, it's up to you. There's lots of no really correct way, but that's I think a bit more correct. So yeah, so soap holder. That's funny. Okay, so I think that's one you can take out. Well, it's not a bad thing to think about actually, but it's just not the right abbreviation. It's SHR, so that's okay. If you're going to do SHR for shower, that's good. So yes, I've never seen that one. You definitely draw it on your elevations, but I've never seen it shown on a plan. Anyhow, if you want to show it, you can do that. So that'd be enough for the drainage symbols. And then later you'll need to have the water supply shown, but only for your new items. But you should start to lay out the drainage for the even for the existing. So the sewer connection. And like I said before, we're just going to have to guess where that is since we don't have a drainage diagram. And look, I'd assume it's actually, well, you'd think it would be along that street there. I think sorry, I might have hidden my other image. Yes, I have. So you'd think that because we've got all of these houses and other things there, that the sewer line would run along that street, since they don't have a rear point they can have a sewer line at. But it's just odd that they've got the bathroom over against that wall, and there could be something coming down here. But I'd say no, probably it is along that street, which would mean you've got a sewer running under the building. So I think we can just assume the sewer line, we'll just say it's running along Kensington Street, and then we've got a sewer pipe. It's a bit odd, running under the building. Well, with a building like this, what else could they do, I suppose? Yeah. So yeah, so that's what they would have done, and yeah, that's definitely an option. So so again, you just need to have a layer for that, and it's just going to be done with a dashed line. So have a look at the graphics in that drawing that I showed you earlier. So here you've got the sewer diagrams from the from Sydney Water, but that probably isn't going to be the best graphics. The one in the Australian Standard is the best one. So not in the standard symbols file, but in, again, where is it? In Australian Standards there. This one is the best. So you can see there we've got, that's actually stormwater. Sorry, one of these does have, gone past it. Oh, okay, and again, this one showing the sewer line with the dashed line, which is basically what you need. But I know there was a drawing that, well, I thought there was a drawing that showed the sewer connection. Oh yes, here it is. Oh no, again, so it's a site plan, so they're just showing the stormwater connection. But yeah, essentially with a dashed line, I think would be fine. You can use also this different line type, which I think is close enough to centre, or you'll see when you go to load them anyway. That could be a good one to use. And we'll be able to transfer all of that onto the site plan later as well. So here, this is Kensington Street, I think. So so again, let's make a new layer definitely for this. So P sewer. And let's make that have a different line type. So going into here, yep, centre is a good one. Honestly, dashed would probably be fine as well. And so now, so you can just copy this, just say the sewer is along Kensington, and just draw a line connecting from there. And we'll just say it goes under the slab. It must. And so when you're doing your new design, you can either connect to this existing sewer connection and have your bathrooms in the same place rising above, would be fine if they're stacked on top of that area. Or you could say, well, if you've got them up against this light well, you could probably have the sewer pipe running outside there and connecting to this area. Or you could have, if you have it in this vicinity, you can have it draining out through this wall and have a riser that comes down alongside that wall and then again just connects in that way. But if you have, say, a bathroom over here, well, you've got to think about how it's going to possibly drain to the sewer line. It's still possible. You could have risers going down, but they're going to be, going through the building unless you think about how it drains. And maybe just to give you a tip, because it's not something that you'll be living in, obviously, or it probably won't ever be built, unless you're very lucky. A macerator is an option. So it's a horrible thing. They grind up, the things that go through the toilet and make them smaller, and so you can use smaller pipes, basically. And it's a good option because it means you can have connections to the sewer without going with big pipes through different parts of your building. So the horrible thing in real life is that you have to clean these things. And yeah, the person who owns the building. It's something you need to know about as designers though, because especially when you're doing refits of old buildings, it's not always an option to put big pipes through everywhere. And people just assume that you therefore can't put the bathrooms in certain places, and you often can if you use one of those things. They're pretty big. This by, that's sort of that high by this wide. Yeah. And they've got to have power, and they do make a bit of noise. So anyhow, it's one of those things you have to know about every aspect of life when you're designing. Anyhow, just think about those things. And if you can do it in the traditional way, which is to have risers that connect to the easiest connection to the sewer, then you're usually better off. And so I think for this, we don't even need to indicate pits or anything like that. I think as long as you've got a line indicating the drainage, then we'll have a plumbing services drawing or drainage diagram, which will be a fairly simple drawing. It doesn't even need to be A3, or it doesn't need to be at scale. You can easily just duplicate one of these sheets and I'll show you how to get something into the same place on a sheet, which is a little bit tricky in AutoCAD actually. So I've copied this sheet across, even though I didn't really need to, you might think, because I'm not going to use anything that's on this sheet really. going to rename it, and I'm going to call it drainage. Or just drain. Neither. It could just go on the reflective ceiling plan, but otherwise you'd need separate drawing for that as well. Yeah. Oh no, actually, sorry. You could definitely. You could show the location of the sprinklers on the drainage diagram. Yeah, you could. Yeah. But no, usually that's just done for buildings that have those. They're normally fairly large commercial buildings, and so you'll do a dedicated reflective ceiling plan that will show all of the services. And there's a lot of other services you'll have in a building like that you wouldn't have in a building like this. So, and you don't need to show the plumbing to connect the sprinklers. So again, engineers, that's what they're for. So, okay, so here I want this plan, or I want my original floor plan to be in exactly the same place on this page as the reflective ceiling plan. Remember, this is the reflected one, not the original floor plan. So how do I do that? Because if I go in here, I can't pan. If I unlock it and then pan, I can't get the same location very easily. So there's a couple of little tricks there. First one is to mark this border out, because I'm going to change that. So I'm going to draw a rectangle to mark that border. And it's on a different layer. That's actually a good thing, because it means that I can turn that layer off just for the time being. So I'll put it onto, I'll just select it. That's my rectangle. And so I'm going to put it onto a layer that is, I don't have any turned off, so I'll just put it onto any of these and turn that layer off just temporarily. You'll see why that's really useful in a moment. So next I'm going to go and draw a line from something in this plan. So I might just use the corner of the building there. So I've got a common reference point. And just to make it easier for you to see, I'll put that onto yet another layer. Now I'm going to go and make that viewport active by double clicking. So I'm in modern, unlock wherever it is unlocked. So I'm going to make sure it's unlocked. And now I'm going to pan but not zoom. So by panning, I'm moving the plan, but I'm not changing the scale. So I can pan down, and there is a special pan command that will pan in a straight line. But that's still not going to help me, because I'm not going to get the vertical position right. So I'm just going to get it close. And you can see it's not quite on that line. So I know it's still on the same place. So I'm going to go back to paper. And I've got to move the whole viewport now on the page. So I'm going to select that border, which is the viewport. Click move. Zooming in, I can snap to that corner and then snap it onto the end of the line. So I've got the plan in the same place, and that's really half the battle. But it doesn't hurt to get that viewport back to the original size, because remember, I've moved that viewport border slightly. So that's why I drew the rectangle. So back to here, I'll turn the layer on that had it. So you can see that's where the viewport border was. So I can now snap that right onto it. I've just deleted the rectangle, and I'll delete the line too. So I know it might seem like a strange method, but it works. And so just to prove to you that it's all in the same place, what I like to do in AutoCAD is zoom all on a sheet. So Z enter, A enter is the shortcut or quick way of doing that. And so I'm going to do that with all of these sheets. And now I can switch through each of them and notice how you can tell straight away all those plans are in exactly the same spot, which is a nice thing to have, especially when you make a PDF and it's all bound. Okay, so then there may be one little thing there. Okay, so the beams maybe wouldn't be necessary in this drainage diagram, so they can be frozen in this, and then we just see the lines. And looking at the lines there, well, I can't see the sewer, so I've got to bring that back. In fact, let's cheat and say, well, the sewer line could be closer to the building than that. So I'll just bring that up because I don't want to mess up my viewport setup. It would be past the footpath usually, but hopefully that's okay. And then the other thing is that the lines are a bit too spaced apart, so I'm going to change that instead of centre to centre 2, which is just a smaller spacing for centre. And that should be enough for your drainage diagram, I think, as long as you, so just make sure you do connections from the other things as well. So the floor waste, and if you've ever wondered, they all drain to the same place. So yeah, I know it was in Seinfeld or something, they had an argument about it. And yeah, George was right, everyone else was wrong, yeah, as usual, but no one, obviously believes him. So yeah, he was right, they all drain to the same sewer connection. And so yeah. So here, yeah, so that's an easy thing to do. Yeah, so maybe just got to use a bit of judgment there, and we're not going to get the line type to show without making it a fairly long line. Well, it's a diagram, it doesn't need to be perfect. So, oops. So, just so it's easier to read, I will make it a bit longer than maybe it is in real life. Oh, and it's still not giving me the dash. It's a bit painful. There we go. Oops. So, and then we'll have another one from the basin over here. And so again, those lines won't show on the other drawings. So this could actually be the basis for the normal floor plan. And so this time I'll copy it again and put it before the RCP. So you don't always need to choose move to end. So there's my copied drawing, and just a very last thing, rename that. I'll call it floor plan. Plan. So sewer off and beams back on for that one. So that saves you having to reposition it. Once you get a couple of drawings in the right place, the rest you'll just be able to copy. And so that's a really good setup. Then you can just keep working and adding in the extra detail. There's still quite a bit to add, but it's already set up on the sheets. And I know I've said the final thing a couple of times, but I will just do one last thing, which is going to be your title block. So just to help you with that, you probably, I think, have a good idea maybe of Or do you have a good idea what you should show in the title block? Yeah. Well, if you have a look in the library, so if you go to that library on the P drive, in blocks 2D, I'd assume, yep, they've got some title blocks there, A3, and unfortunately it's horizontal, but I'm going to bring it in anyway. And that's not a terrible title block. It's not really A3, but it's not, looks okay. And it's done with attributes, which is a nice thing to have. So I'm going to, just to make it easier, put in a few things in these fields. So they've done some funny names though. So AO, that's the drawing number. So that's, yeah, now look, okay, I'm just going to leave it actually because I was going to show you can modify it, but instead we'll just use it as a reference because you need to know how attributes work, and that's something, if we get time I will show you later. Attributes aren't that hard, and that will give you basically adjustable fields in a block, which makes sense for something like a title block. You can then just go through and put in your own values rather than modifying a set of different text objects. But it'll take too long if I do that now. So we'll keep it simple and copy the values they've got here just to give you a good guide. So your own title block size is up to you. I'm going to do it on the sheet that has the most on it so that I know the room I've got. If you look in the Metric Handbook, you get some good templates for the size of title blocks and how much of the page they should take up and things like that. So do you all have the Metric Handbook? No. You must. No? Oh, you have to have it. For design, I can't work without it. The Metric Handbook? Nefert? Yeah, that's okay. That's pretty good, but that's European, obviously. It's German, I think, and so the standards in English or Commonwealth countries are a bit different, and so the Metric Handbook's British, and I put a copy on here for another class. Which is called the Metric Handbook, or did I not give it to you? No, I didn't give it to them, sorry, I thought I had. Sorry, I thought I'd put it somewhere in here. Let's just see. No? Okay, so I thought I'd given it out. But anyhow, the PDF I've got is a really old version, and so I'd really recommend that you buy the newer one, which is what I use. And it's a big red book. It's about the thickness of a phone book, which is just full of design drawings, design sizes, templates, and standards. So if you're ever wondering what size to make a chair or a space between kitchen units or anything like that, it's got all the recommended sizes, so you don't have to think about that stuff. That just makes life really easy. And even page setup, so how to lay out different page sizes and even where to fold the pages, all those things. It's amazing, yeah. So here though, we'll just use it, or just do a rough guide. So I've got I'll just use my annotation text layer for now, and we'll make a proper layer for it later. Since it is, no, I'm going to copy it, so I will better make a layer. So, title, so, what happened to that? Didn't go in order. That's one of those annoying things with AutoCAD. If you don't check it in that list there. It won't always order things in the right way. And so again there with the just with the rectangle, I'm going to draw alongside that page down the side. So 35mm across is about right. They can go up to about 50, but for A3 that's going to take up a bit too much. So 35, maybe 40mm is good. Let's move that to a slightly better place. So just get that down. Alright, so looking at the title block, we've got date, scale, drawing number, job number, which is project number. What else? Just so I don't forget anything. Client name, your name, drawn by. What else? Later when you've got a firm, you put all of that in as well. But I think that'll be enough, so I can remember that. Okay, so I'm going to explode this so that I can offset or copy that line up. So you just have divisions using lines and oops. So it's not a bad idea to have the drawing number and the project number at the bottom, and so and they can even be together. I don't mind doing them in the one field. So just using text, we're going to check that we've got some text styles there that will be good. Not really. So I've got this annotative one. That should be okay. And I'll make the height 3.5 to begin with, and we can adjust it after that. So I'm just going to draw some text. So I'm going to run out of time in a minute, sorry about that, but yeah, got to do this. So if we draw the, well, decide whether single line or multi-line makes more sense. Probably in most cases multi-line here would be better. So that text can probably be 2.5 since it's only a label. Just fine tune the position. And then I'll copy it across. So maybe not that far. So the first one should be project number. And maybe actually it needs to be less. Since we've got such a narrow title block, I think that needs to be 2. Yep. And so there, we can make this text right justified. Yeah, I don't want to spend too long on this, but that's something you could think about. For now, maybe actually just moving it over would be good. And then that can be copied down, and you put just text fields for the values. So project number, just make up a number. I'll use the date backwards. And then the drawing number, again we don't really know yet, but this one might be, so A, A004, something like that. And again, you can think about the justification later, but for now I'll just move that across. And then this maybe can come across as well. And that should be bigger. So again, you can just change that height as you go. So 3.5 is good. That's a good standard height for things like this. So you need to work out your own, but that should give you a starting point. And then, so remember those other fields, date, scale. And once you've got a couple done, you can just copy all of that. And so you might lay it out a bit nicely than that. So the date anyway. You might have a line. Sorry? Oh, not really. I haven't got the latest edition. It's probably about 5 years old, mine. Oh, right. Oh, where from?
It's on the Internet Archive.
Oh.
Yeah, and there's also the Australia Library
On the right. So you can just keep adding fields like that, and with the upper boxes you can have more spacing and make that a bit nicer. So you have the project name, client name, and maybe do a little logo for your own, hypothetical design firm. And so once you've done all of that, you can then select it all and use copy and paste. So if you're using the clipboard option, copy, then there you actually need to use copy with base point, and then you can type 0, 0 as your base point, go to another page, right click, go to clipboard, and then choose paste, type 0, 0 again, and that should put it in exactly the same place on another page. So that's plenty for today.